What is up, guys? It is Crew3 Chris here, bringing you our first arena video in our new content that we're making here. Today I'm going to focus more on limited. We'll bring you guys some standard content pretty soon, but one of the first things, if you guys don't have or did not buy a bunch of the card bundles or splurge a bunch on packs, is that limited is going to be your way to get the cards that you need to start making some standard decks with some of these Ikoria cards. So hopefully this a little primer here will get you jump started. I've done about a dozen drafts. It's day 2 or 3 of the set being out, I want to say here, and I've done about a dozen drafts, and I've done pretty well. I've actually been surprised at how well I've done. I'm by no means a limited mastermind, but I had back-to-back 7 wins. We got a 6 win. The draft after one where we got like an average 3 win or something like that. So I took 3,400 gems. I've done about a dozen drafts on them, and this is about where we're at now. So I do have some insights for you guys, and even the draft format's changed since we started like 2 days ago, as far as what we've learned from it. So thing one I want to point out to you guys is that black is in my opinion the best color, and I don't know that it's particularly close. One of the reasons why is black just has insane removal. You've got dead weight, discard, Heartless Act, by the way, is first pickable. I only have here the commons and uncommons from the set. If you guys see a rare, for the most part, you can draft it because the color fixing is so good. But, you'll get a feel, probably do a draft and listen to what I'm saying here, and then take it from there and see what you can do. So, but the removal here is all very, very good in black. And then surprisingly, these random dirtily guys, these Boot Nippers, Zagoth, Durable Coilbug, very, very good. The format started off very, very aggressive because there was so much removal. So, like, you could just put down a 1, 2, and a 3, remove all your opponent's threats because everybody just wanted to go so big. But now, people are realizing that, if you just draft these random duders, the aggro decks can't get you in time, and then you can just go really, really, really big. So, this card, Bastard Remembrance, is also first pickable. In my opinion, like, Heartless Act is first pickable. It's one of the best removal spells in the set, especially for 2 mana. These are more like filler cards, the random 1 and 2 mana things. Deadweight's fine. I don't know that I would first pick it, but if there's nothing else in the pack, it's definitely, acceptable. Bastard Remembrance can be first pickable if you want to be on the aggro plan. This is similar to the something of the Ravens from the Theros block or Eldraine block, whichever one that was, where every time they attack you, they take damage. And this one is one where you make a ton of tokens because there's a lot of token makers, and let's see what the 3 ones here. Yeah, Night Squad, Commando, and there's a 4 mana white one that when it comes into play just makes you a 1/1 token. And people don't start realizing that, like, they realize a lot of times too late that your tokens are, 2/2s essentially, because each one of them that gets in later is going to deal them an extra damage. So people don't do the combat math on this pretty well. I played against some pretty high-ranked players who died to this very quickly. So if you can get 2 of these in a deck, I think that's your aggro deck. Otherwise, I do not think aggro is very, very good in this format, unfortunately. Like, unless you're on the Bastion of Remembrance plan, I just haven't seen aggressive decks do very well. You could probably, if you were on the Menace plan, do pretty well, because there is that 4 mana red uncommon that I will show you guys here. This Pangolin Tiger, no, not a Pangolin Tiger, Ferocious Tigerella. This card is with a 4/3 with Menace is pretty strong. That's a pretty good rate for a Menace creature. So that card is very, very good. But otherwise, black is the best color in the format. That's, like I said, this is my favorite aggressive deck. You probably could also make an aggressive deck in red, but in my opinion, it's better to be a mid-range to late-game deck. Blood Curdle, also first pickable. Giving your guy Menace can be okay, but just the 4 mana instant destroy any creature is obviously very, very good. It's pretty comparable to this, the Heartless Act. Heartless Act most of the time gets whatever creature you want. There's obviously that rare case where it doesn't, but better than Doomblade in my opinion, because a lot of creatures don't have counters, or you can kill them in response to getting whatever counters they're going to if you wanted to. So this card, very, very good. Grim Dancer, I don't know that it's a card that I would first pick, but giving it whatever you need, the Menace or the Lifelink if you're trying to survive, or the Menace Death Touch to just murder any 2 blockers, like if you're putting the pressure on, if you were in that aggressive deck, is very, very good. Typically this deck is Humans, because Humans is the deck that goes wide, but you can run like some Necropanther and some Vulpikeets and things like that. So that's black. Again, if you can be in black, you probably should. I'll go over more archetype stuff later. Most of the cards in black are playable. This card's playable, this card's playable. this card's playable. Like, just most of the black cards are just insanely playable for no reason. So back to the beginning, we'll look at some white cards. There's not a ton of cards in white that I think are really worth first picking at common and uncommon. Obviously, in red, it's a different story. Pacifism, obviously, is very good, as always. Divine Arrow. Checkpoint Officer's fine, but they've really, really neutered this card. The fact that it takes 2 mana to tap a creature means that, like, it's not an early board presence that's dealing them damage. And honestly, this is one of the reasons aggro is not as good as I want it to be. Like, yeah, you can sneak some wins with this card, but because the activated ability cost is 2, really, really slows you down. You'd much rather have, like, this card on turn 2. Just for the beatdowns, and then this later, but it doesn't always work like that. So if you can get an early beatdown plan and then into this eventually, it's great, but as far as an early board presence, this card's been worse than I thought it would. That being said, tapping down creatures is still very good. It's particularly good in a mid-range to later game deck, because then you're just trying to not die. Right, like if you think you have the inevitability, this is a good card to just get down. This is better when you're on the offensive though, because you can always tap creatures down. Whereas, like, if your opponent has one of these, they can win the tap down war if they're attacking you. It's something you'll realize when you play this card. The who's tapping who down gets a little bit tricky. Swallow Whole. So this card was an all-star at the beginning of the format, and the more I've played with this, like, it's definitely still very, very, very good, but a lot of times, like, you're just trying to do degenerate late game things, like play whatever ultimatums that you drafted, because colors don't matter in this format. You can play pretty much whatever you want. There's just so much good fixing within reason. I've definitely seen people get punished, but you'll definitely take some mulligans. But this card, a lot of times the board sits at parity. So, like, if you were a mid-range deck and you're going to cast this on an opponent's attacking creature, right, because it has to be a tapped creature, it's better, but this card started off, in my opinion, as like, oh, look, it's a 1-mana white removal spell. That's insane. But the conditions are definitely there. So, like, this card, I can't honestly tell you that it's worth first picking anymore. Maybe it is, and maybe I'm crazy. But I have not seen this card be as good, because a lot of times you're just sitting there staring at each other if you've drafted the better decks in the format. Because, again, I don't think aggro is as good anymore. Blue is another one of the better colors in the format. White's okay because it's got some decent removal, but other than that, like, most of the cards in blue are playable, I would say. Like, Turtle's not particularly playable, but you could if you really needed to survive. But in common and uncommon, Essence Scatter's an all-star. Essence Scatter's something that, if it's not first pickable, it's pretty close. This card is just insane. Facet Reader, solid, not first pickable, but something you'll pick up as a filler and ends up being way better than I thought it was. Omniseas is very good, but 8 cards is definitely a lot. Like, even for the cycle, like, unless you're like hardcore dedicated cycle, it's a little tough. And the thing about the cycle decks in limited is, you only have so many non-land permanents. So when you're cycling a bunch of your permanent cards or your spell cards or whatever, you tend to just draw a lot of lands. So, like, once you get to your first Omniseas, it's really hard to get to the second. Like, you might get to your first 8/8 quickly, but you're typically not getting to your second 8/8 as fast. So, I do like this card. The fact that we only have 40 cards limited and typically 20, anywhere from 22 to 24 playables. Only somebody going to have somebody are going to have cycling. This card is not as powerful as that would be, but getting an 8/8 at some point is still fine. So, like, it's definitely a strong card, but it's not as bonkers as I thought that it was going to be. This card doesn't do a whole lot. This card is very, very strong, Mystics of Duel. This is one that could be worth first picking because it stops the mutate abilities. That's something that I actually went to go check out on the Gatherer fact questions about this card. The rulings on this card, I should say, is that this stopping mutate is very, very, very strong. So you can flash us in response, and the mutate abilities won't go off if they're mutating onto something. So that's a pretty nifty fact about that card that makes that very, very strong. Glimmerbell, surprisingly, is a good filler card. Like, you will want this card if you're in one of the best decks just to stave off early game beatdowns. So this card, surprisingly good. The 2-mana untap surprisingly gets people sometimes when they're just not paying attention. You'll attack with 2 of these, you leave 4 mana up to untap them and surprise, deal 2 damage or something. I've definitely done that to people at certain levels. So definitely not a card in other formats, this card would probably be unplayable. Here it's fine, just a 1/3 wall to help you survive until you're doing your degenerate later game things. Capture Sphere, close to first pickable. Very, very good removal spell. If it's not first pickable, it's pretty close. Thieving Otter, again, not first pickable, but very, very, very good. Reconnaissance Mission, very, very, very strong card. Again, I'm not sure that it's first pickable, but once you're in blue, And it might be a first pickable. This card's very, very strong. A lot of times, like, these games come down to card advantage, who just has the bigger blowout play, and this card makes it very, very strong. Frostlink's another good filler card, obviously. Pouncing Shores. Okay, here you go. This card is first pickable, in my opinion. Pouncing Shore Shark is very, very, very strong. Flash Mutate, it bounces a creature. I played a deck with two of these, and it was like the first draft I did. I just saw this card, and I was like, this card has to be good. It was insane. I think it was like, had no idea what it was doing. I don't even know. It was like a blue-red deck, and I think I got 5 or 6 wins off of it. And it was not a particularly great deck, other than I drafted the cards that I knew would be good, which was like this one. I had a Dreamtail Heron. This card is another very, very strong one. If the pack is weak, this could definitely be first pickable. So very strong. We will move on to red, because red's got one card that I want to highlight that's just very, very insane. This card's very, very good. Otherwise, red has been pretty underwhelming to me, other than the Tigerilla thingy. Yeah, other than that card being strong. Obviously, you've got your burn spells, which are very good. Prickly Marmoset is a very, very strong card. Probably not something I'm first picking, but is a very, very, very strong card. If nothing else is in the pack, I'd be happy to have that. This card's surprisingly good. With Cycle, it's not too hard. A lot of times you're playing like underwhelming cycling cards just because they're just not that bad, right? Like, this card is very, very strong anyway, and it cycles for 1. This card, it can be effectively a root spell depending on how your opponent, blocks and whatnot, and cycling for 2 is insane. So a lot of times you cycle early to either hit your lands or do whatever, or to just casting spells, and this card gets double strike very, very quickly. Rumbling Rockslide is fine. Porcupine is definitely solid. Pingers are just always good in every format. The really highlight, like the reason to play red in my opinion, is Clash of the Titans. This card is very, very good. So the reason why this is such a big deal is that it says target creature fights another target creature. This is one of the few cards that lets your opponent's creatures fight. Okay, so typically, this is a card that's at best removing 2 of your opponent's cards. The problem is it's just not always insane. I've definitely gotten some pretty poor value off this, but if your opponent attacks into you, and they've got a strong creature and a weaker creature, you can have the big creature fight the smaller one and then block the bigger one to hopefully finish it off. But I've made some nutty plays on this, making my opponents 2 6/6s fight each other, and that was just, they could not come back from that. They could not come back from losing like 12 mana's worth of 2 cards leaving the battlefield. So this card, very, very insane. Keep in mind that Death Touch, if they're playing black, there's the 3 mana 3/3 we were talking about a minute ago, and the little Bug Napper thing, the 2 mana 2/1. A lot of times those are given Death Touch because it's the stronger of the abilities, and when you have that Death Touch creature fight their own guy, it will kill it, obviously, so that's just something to keep in mind to make that extra strong. Cloud Piercer, another very, very strong card. Again, if it's not first pickable, it's pretty solid. Mostly you don't want to be in red. I'll explain why in a minute, but if you were in red because you got an insane card, this card, and especially this card, this letting you just get card advantage is very, very insane. Very, very good. So red's definitely solid. You've got some good things there. You've got some good gold cards that are in red, so I do like those. Green, I think you mostly play green for the ramp, and then just for some of the random big dudes. Wilt is a card that I recommend you play in your deck in best of ones. At worst, it cycles. At best, it kills any of the several, like, Pacifism, Capture Sphere. There's another one. There's another enchantment that's worth killing. But any one of those things destroyed is just a huge boon for yourself, and it cycles. Almighty Brushwag is an insane card. If you guys have played some Limited, you've probably seen this already. It looks kind of dumb, but when you mutate onto this thing, the fact that it keeps trample and its plus ability, like late game, this card is just a monster. So this is a card where it's not, I'm not first picking this card. Anytime you see one, once you know you're green, you probably want to take it. It's a very, very strong card. This card obviously strong to help you survive the early game beatdowns. Essence Symbiote, letting you gain 2 life is the big one on that. Obviously making something stronger is really, really nice. It does the Vulpikeet ability for all things, but the 2 life is nice to survive any people that are still playing aggressive decks out there. Otherwise, this Fertilid and Migratory Greathorn, in my opinion, are the highlights of the set. This is why I'm playing. This is a 3 mana ramp ability. Obviously, Fertilid gets you whatever land. This lets you really be able to play any 3 color combination with green that you want, in addition to Migration Path. But typically, you'll see 1 or 2 of these going around, and they're always worth picking up. If you're going to be in green because you opened a rare, because you just really like it, this card's very, very good. Some people do not like green. I like green fine. You get a lot of really strong duders from it. So, boom, here we've got our mutate thing. We've got our guy here that lets us get plus counter, so your guys get pretty big pretty fast. And then you do have things like your Godzillas, your Sandworms, which can't be blocked by tokens, your Greater Mammoths to gain you life. So these ones you mutate something onto them to give them trample or whatever else, get very, very strong. Obviously, Ivy Elemental is very strong at any point in the game, especially later. But it's a card you're fine making a 4-mana 3/3 if you need to, just to be a curve filler. And then obviously the later this gets very, very strong, and it can be mutated onto. Mutate is much better than a lot of people gave it credit for. The fact that you get, it's not uncommon to mutate a creature twice and start getting multiple of those effects. So that's why the dragons, your snapped axes, your whatever else are so strong, because if you activate it the first time and then you mutate onto it again, it's just insane. So what I don't think we were thinking about was just getting the value off the incremental mutate abilities being so insane. There's one more white card I wanted to talk about that was fine, which is the Vulpikeet I wanted to say. Yeah. White-black is the aggressive deck I was talking about with the Bastion, that in my opinion is probably the second best deck in the format if you can get a Bastion or two. I've had a lot of success with that. It's one of the decks I went 7-1 with, I want to say, was my total overall record. This card is fine. There's a lot of times where I find myself cutting this because it's just like, but you kind of do want to have it. It cycles for 2, and then it's definitely one of the worst Anthem type effects, team buff effects that I've seen in the recent years, but it still gets the job done. So that card's good. Vulpikeet is another one you really want in your deck because you'll typically have a couple non-humans. The best color pair, if I can tell you guys, on average what I would have you draft, would be blue-black. The blue-black deck is just packed chock full of removal. You've got insane late game. This card is very, very good because you can give it hexproof. So this is a card I recommend you have one, maybe even two of in your deck, because this is just a way to stave off early pressure. If you need to, you can give it flying to finish off the game. But your blue-black deck, on average, in my opinion, is the best deck. If you draft blue-black with solid removal spells, you will win some games. As long as you learn the format, play smart, the blue-black deck, in my opinion, is significantly stronger than the other decks at its best, assuming you didn't draft some 4-color god deck with 5 rares, right? That involve green so you can get all your colors. If you didn't do that, the best color pair, in my opinion, is blue-black. The second best as far as optimal, but in my opinion on average is worse, is saying was the aggro deck. Unless you get this Bastion of Remembrance, I think is the name of this card. Yeah. Unless you get this, a lot of the aggro decks just aren't very good. But if you're able to first pick this card, I think you can steal a lot of wins with this. Other than that, you're just going to Zen draft whatever you want. We're going to jump into a draft here, and I'll show you guys just what I'm looking for when I'm doing it. And we'll see if we put the games up at the same time. But let's go ahead and jump into a draft here, and we'll see what we can find. Hey guys, Chris back here. I wanted to, before I show you the draft part here, I do want to go over just a couple of the gold cards that I didn't really go over, just because a couple of them are pretty relevant. Most of them aren't extremely worth talking about, but there's definitely some solid ones that I think are worth looking at. We'll go just in order here. Jubilant Skywander's a totally fine pick. This is one of the things, if there's no removal in the pack and you're in blue-white, or blue or white, I should say, you're going to take this creature. A 3-mana 2/2 flyer with upside is very, very strong. Something that previously a 3-mana 2/2 with flyer might have an extra downside to it, be like a 3-mana 2/1, but this having some upside with hybrid mana is pretty crazy. Dire Tactics is fine. It'll definitely get you. I assume you're taking this if you're in the humans deck, but even if you're not, it's a removal spell. But it can do some hefty damage if you're taking out some big boys. So not the first removal spell I would pick. I do not think that this is necessarily first pickable, but again, if there's nothing else in the pack, you could take it. General's Forcer is fine. 4 mana to make a 1/1 is a solid rate, so a fine filler, but obviously you have to be in those colors. Same thing with Necropanther. You have to, once you're in those colors, you should definitely take this. Not something you're going to take early. Dorat, same story, not first pickable, but if you're in blue-red, you're definitely going to take this card as soon as you know, because it's very, very strong, flying in and getting bigger. Lord Drakis is a card that if you're in blue or red, you're going to take. It's just very, very solid to get an instant or sorcery back, assuming you've played some. So this is a card that I would be looking to take before, it's more valuable because its mutate ability is hybrid. Chinook Force is okay. It's obviously good in a cycling style deck. Otherwise, I have not been too impressed with it. This card's fine. This card's very good. Again, the mutate cost being green. black hybrid makes this card very good and a card that I'm likely to take. This card is very, very good. A card that I consider, like, if you don't have a direction, this could take you in that direction, because green-black is a good deck. And this card getting you back one of your big dudes that maybe got killed or you milled it, and then having it also be a removal spell, very, very strong. This card is not very good, Regal Venusaur. It's okay if you happen to be in the humans deck, but a lot of times it's hard to find something to mutate onto. Savia Thundermane is very, very, very good. If you get these cards here, I will move this. See, the flare is kind of hard to see, unfortunately. Well, Zenith Flare is here, and I will enlarge it here. Zenith Flare says it deals X damage to any target. That target probably going to be your opponent's face in this case. This card is absolutely first pickable, even though it's 2 colors. This card is absolutely insane. There's a ton of cyclers in this set. I almost died to a guy who did like nothing for 4 or 5 turns, and I got him down to like 3, and he Zenith Flared me down to 1. Because he just spent the whole game cycling, along with this card. If you can put these 2 cards in the same deck, especially if you can get multiple Zenith Flares. Zenith Flares just go late. A lot of people don't like to be in this deck, but it's one of, if it's not the strongest deck, it's one of the strongest decks, if you have Zenith Flare in particular. Red-White is not very strong until you get Zenith Flare, and then it becomes incredibly, incredibly strong. So I wanted to add this kind of addendum on here, because these 2 cards are very, very, very good. And this one, I'm more likely to first pick than this one, but this card's very good. So if you see a Zenith Flare early on in the draft, take it. This is, this card will win you the drafts on its own. There's not a lot of counter magic for just instants, right? Essence Scatter counters, whatever. There's just the Neutralize that I'm aware of, and then obviously Convolute. But yeah, this card straight up wins you games. It's worth first picking every time, in my opinion, especially if you can get one of these guys with it who just starts to take over the game by being a removal and gaining you life. Otherwise, this is another card that I really, really love. Primal Empathy, very, very, very good. I've actually had problems with this decking me, because like I'm just drawing so many cards, and then it can be kind of hard to hit stalemate. But otherwise, this card is another card that first pickable, I'm not sure, but maybe. I'll probably, as I play with it more, I'll probably update this rating. But this card, very, very strong. All of these blue-green cards are very, very strong. This is, my opinion, is the strongest. This is fine because the cost to mutate is 5. But the thing you got to think about that is, like, this is the one you want to mutate first, and then every other mutate afterwards is going to also get you another 3/3, which is why the first one is so expensive. But this card, fairly strong, and the fact that it's, the mutates blue-green hybrid means that you don't have to super worry if you're not in blue-green. It's a fine color combination, but whatever. Parcel Beast, another really good one. Just getting to draw cards is very, very strong, and it's got a fine body on it. It's got a fine toughness to make your draft easier to block. So the blue-green cards are all fine. In my opinion, this is the strongest. These are good fillers, and the crystals are fine. As I've recorded more and more and played more and more, we've ranked up a ton in the past couple days here. The crystals are solid if you're going to be in a mid to late game deck. Again, they cycle, but the traditionally mana rocks have been good, and these are no different, especially with how easy it is to go 3 colors. We're going to end up playing a 2-color deck most of the time, early on, at least as far as like the format was concerned. I drafted a lot of 2-color decks, but now a lot of these decks I'm drafting are 3 colors because it's so easy to play 3 color. So I will tell you, do not be afraid to pick 3 color. Do not be afraid to pick strong cards, because a lot of times you'll be able to cast them. Just, you want to be typically 3 color in green, because the mana fixing is obviously stronger there as it has been in the past, but the crystals are fine as well. So that's all I wanted to say, and we'll get you guys to the draft. All right, guys, we're back here for our draft portion. Triomes are fine, but I don't think they're first pickable. I tend to like being in blue, and one thing I like about this pack here is that it's likely that we're going to wheel one of these cards to get like more playables for our blue deck. As much as black is one of the better colors, I'm not sure that it's available here. We're going to draft whatever just ends up coming to us, but this card is very, very, very strong as far as making creatures lose their abilities. So we're going to first pick this and be happy with it. All right. Let's see here. We can keep going with our blue theme here. Lead the Stampede is a very, very good draw card effect, as well as a Brushwag, which I think we're pretty likely to wheel one of these 2 cards. Easy Prey is fine, but a lot of times your big fear is like the bigger dudes. It's like, this card's good, but The pick is either Capture Sphere or Lead the Stampede. I think you could reasonably go to either. We already have a blue card, which probably makes us want to take Capture Sphere as a removal spell, so we're probably going to do that. But Lead the Stampede would also be a fine pick if you wanted to go there. I think the card advantage that offers you is pretty strong, and it's pretty likely we would maybe like wheel one of these two. Well, maybe not. Maybe because like this card's garbage. People won't take that card. But like those two cards, oh, maybe so, because this card's pretty strong too. I bet we're going to wheel one of these two cards. We'll see when it comes back, but we're going to take the Capture Sphere. Alright. I'm not super excited about any of these. Pacifism's the best card by far. We're probably going to take it, but other considerations I think would be like this card. This card's good. I do like me some blue-green. But I just don't think you're supposed to pass up pacifism. I don't know if the blue-white deck's any good, but if you end up getting some flyers, like the Skies deck is fine. It's another deck that's another aggro deck that I think is totally fine. So we're going to take this just as the best card in the pack and see what we get. This is a pretty strong pack. Again, Lead the Stampede's very good. These cards are fine. I actually don't know like how much better like a Lead the Stampede or like a Frostlynx is than anything else. I didn't used to be so high on this card, but the card advantage this offers is very, very, very strong. But if we wanted to go Skies, this would be one of the ways to do it, because we're looking to pick up like some Thieving Otters, so like we could make our Otter fly hopefully, and get in there. We're going to take this. We're going to take that and hope we get some Otters to make them fly. Let's see here. Well, white keeps coming to us, so we're probably going to keep taking it. In my opinion, this card is very, very solid. It pretty much neutralizes most of the red removal spells. If you mutate onto it, it actually hides that ability, so I've seen people forget it. Other considerations, again, if we were green, this card's fine. Rumbling Rock Slide's very good. I think the blue-red deck is reasonable. We've already got a pacifism, so we're going to take this. Again, if we need to be adaptable and start drafting a different style of deck, we will. This card's very good. So, like, these cards are fine, but, like, if we want to go multiple colors, Evolving Wilds is very, very strong. This card's very good, but it's just not one of the stronger removal spells that I've seen. But it is a removal spell. Man, don't get me wrong. This card's strong, but I really do just like the ability to play whatever colors that we want. We're going to take the Blade Banish, so we can get rid of our opponent's big stuff. Emergent Ultimatum. This card can be pretty good and limited. This, by the way, is one of the payoffs for green. I really like this card a lot, I was talking about, but Halakha Glider is a very, very strong one of the cards that we're looking for in our flying deck, so we're going to take this and see if maybe we can beat down with some blue-white Skies. This card's surprisingly fine. We're going to take it. We're kind of getting to that point where we're about to see our first pack back. I don't think the cards we thought were going to wheeled. People were pretty hardcore on the blue deck, I guess. We're going to take this Combat Trick. That's another solid Combat Trick. This card is a good removal spell. This card's good. I'm not super excited to be in blue-white. I don't think it's one of the stronger archetypes. We probably could have forced like Grain and Gun Bigger or something like that, but we shall see. I probably should have stuck to more blue cards to leave myself in a better shape for Pack 2. I'm trying to decide if we're going to be on the aggressive deck or not. We're going to take this card for now. It cycles. We'll see what we get for a pack dose. I think we could make a good deck out of this. Again, we've got solid removal. This will make things lose flying. It'll stop their mutate abilities. This card's like subpar. The Helical Glider is surprisingly good. I do love me some Genesis Ultimatum. And honestly, like, even at this point, you could still probably play this card. But, like, we're going to go for... Probably going to go for maximum number of wins, as much as I like to do this for fun and show you guys what this is all about. We have one of the cards we're really looking for in Dreamtail Heron. So, this is a card I think we're going to be happy first picking and go. Unfortunately, we could probably get rid of our white if we wanted something like this, but this card's just very, very good. So, we're not going to win this Capture Sphere, unfortunately. As good as it is, we've already got a Capture Sphere. So, we're going to take our Dreamtail Heron. Let's see here. Man. This pack is very good. I wouldn't mind a second Capture Sphere, but we've already got up 2 4-mana removal spells. And Helical Glider and Vulpikeet are both like the cards we're looking for. So let's take this Vulpikeet. Hopefully at some point you'll find some otters, some thieving otters. Well, keep getting fed the blue. These packs are good for us. Hopefully people aren't on our colors and we can just get some of these things back. But Essence Scatter is just one of the premier cards. Even if we're going to be trying beating down, that card's just too insane to not play. Well, our considerations are Glimmerbell and Divine Arrow. Typically you always take removal, and we're going to end up taking the removal, but like getting cheap creatures is also solid. And this card's like, again, you need early cards to, in case your opponent's whipping out aggro on you. So like we do need to pick up more of this type of card, but I think Divine Arrow is just too strong of a removal spell. This card's very good. We're either going to take this Marshall or this Serval. And we could take Saltwater Cliffs in case we wanted to splash another color, because none of these cards are particularly exciting, like if we wanted to splash red. And we might just end up doing that, but like this card is fine. It's just a Vigilance dude. We might be able to mutate it to have flying, so... I definitely have the ability to make it stronger. There's definitely a reason to take this, though we could maybe splash some red, because 3 colors isn't too hard, but we're going to take this just random 2-drop guy. This card's very good, and is one of the reasons to be in red-white, because it just goes face. So like this is a huge payoff to the red-white deck, but we don't particularly care about anything here. We might just take this Evolving Wilds in case we want to splash. In fact, I think that's what we're going to do. We're not excited about any of these cards either. We've already got one of these. I don't think we want a second one. But it does cycle. Oh, we'll just take this. We'll just take the kitty. I don't think we've got a kitty yet. Try and give it flying. We do want as many of these as we can pretty much get. So we're going to take this one. This card's fine, but like, I don't think we need Vigilance. We're not doing a lot of Vigilance. We're going to try and do a little more flying. So take our Helical Glider and be happy about it. It looks like we're pretty much just going to be Combat Tricks the deck. So I think we're going to be one of the kind of more doomed aggro decks in this format. I don't want one of these things. So if I want to take this on a color, or since we have the Evolving Wilds, if I want to take Prickler Marmoset, Jeskai is a fine color combination to be. So we are. Just in the off chance we're going to be Jeskai because it's so easy. Wow, yeah. So many good cards in this pack. I think we want the first Facet Raider over the next Helical Glider, just because this helps us loot away our lands late game. As much as we don't want to be a late game deck, that card's just too strong. We do want as many... Okay, well, we'll take the third one there. Like I said, there's not really such a thing as too many of this card in my opinion, but... It just has whatever you need it to have. What another fight is one? Yeah, I think we'll have the second fight of one over the second tiger. We'll take a Farfinder. Okay, we need splash colors. Don't super know what we're looking for here in pack 3. Jeskai Ultimatum, I suppose. Lutri. So we might take this and hope to companion it. The only problem is we have so many Helica gliders, but we could probably make it potential work. Even if not, even if we just play this card, it's just very, very good. Just a 3/2 flash threat is fine. Yeah. This card's good, but we're taking the Lutri. And we're going to consider whether or not we can companion it or not. We want the first otter over the second one of this thing, in case we're going to try and companion the Lutri. If we get more thieving otters, we're just going to take them probably and not look back. We want the first of this. Yeah, Even Oddity is another one of the cards we're looking for in this deck for our flying deck. It might not be bad to have a second one of these, but there's definitely a chance that we companion our Lutri, so. I don't know that we can take double red, but this card's insane. I guess we're just going to take the Swallow Hole. Second Vulpikid is good, but we're going to take this first Swallow Hole. So this card is almost worth splashing for. The problem is it's hard to splash for a double red card, but this card is absolutely insane. I love it. This card's another card it's very, very good, but we've got some fine on-color white cards here. So Vulpikid's solid, but we've already got one, I believe. So just in case we're going to companion our Lutri, we're going to take our Swallow Hole here. Petekia Tiger's fine. This card might be worth splashing red for. I don't think we have a ton of cycling, though. We've got a couple cycling cards. Even when you cycle every now and then, this card's very good, but we could definitely take like our first Frostveil Ambush. Or our first Petekia Tiger. I think Frostveil Ambush is good at cycles. Lutri doesn't do the most for us just so far, because a lot of our removal spells are enchantment based. So it may not be a card that we companion, but we'll see. Companion is just insane, it's just have an extra card. Like, we don't necessarily care to have two of this card. Oh, we don't have a Frostlings yet, right? No. This is the worst of the little weird cat things, but it's okay. There's definitely been some solid red late that like makes me think we definitely could have potentially been 3-color. We'd have an Evolving Wilds, but we're going to take this Frostlings. It's a very, very good card. Second Frostlings. Blitz of the Thunder Router. We might take this on the off chance that we're going to splash red. For like this random removal spell, maybe a Prickly Marmoset. I'm going to take this. They're going to take the Checkpoint Officer. We don't have one yet. I'm surprised it's going this late. It's a very, very good card. We're going to Windmill Slam that Checkpoint Officer. We don't want the second Serval thing. One of these is potentially fine. Traneth Healer. I'm going to take the Anticipate. I'm going to take that. I don't think we want a second Facet Raider that bad anyway. This thing cycles. both these cards are fine. We're going to take this because it's on color. I don't think we can do anything with it, but... we done with a pretty solid deck here. I don't know... that we have the late game is the only thing. So the question is it better to have an extra card in hand? Everybody tells me it's always good to companion, so I think we're going to try and companion this, but like 3 Helica Gliders is definitely where we want it to be. So let's see what we can make this look like here. We take this out. We're not going to play in. We're not going to end up playing our red because we've got too many cards. We're going to kill this. It gets our red out. I tend to like just 16 lands, especially when our curve is this low. The answer might even be 15, to be honest with you. What do our pips look like? So we're going to look at what our pips look like. We've got 17 blue pips and 14 white pips. Do we want white earlier? We don't want double fight as one. It's going to mess up our companion. Strike loot to redo our companion spot because you actually have to do that. Oh, we still need to cut 6 cards. This card's not good. This card's fine. Plus, Indestructible's a pretty good combat trick. Swallow Hole I like. This card's probably one of the first ones we got. This is actually a good card and worth consideration. Colorless removal always is, but we're going to get rid of it for now. We will end up just needing random 2-drops. I don't think this card makes it. This card's not making it. I don't think this card's worth it. Keep Safe is fine, but it's one of the first cards we can cut. Let's see if there's a better card to cut. We've only got one more cut to make. This card cycling, I think cycle 1 is just kind of free. Like, we don't have a lot of cycling synergy is the only thing, but even then, just like making a big duder can be pretty solid. Anything that I'm not looking to play though? No, all these cards look good. The Crustacean's definitely not the best. But how many creatures do we have? 13 creatures. We're pretty low on creatures. So I think we're just going to keep... I think we may just keep our 1/6 in there. Just to have some... decent creatures. Because we've got a lot of non-creature spells. So we need something to go the distance, you know? Man. We just might need 2-drops. I know this says we've got a lot of 2s, but look how many of them are removal spells. I like how it breaks down our creature count for us. We've got 2 wizards, a squirrel, a soldier, and an otter. Can't lose. Loot Tree's free, though, which is kind of nice. Not experienced enough to know exactly what this last cut is. Sometimes I don't make a cut, I just play 41 cards, but we're not going to do that here. I think the answer is one of these. We have so few creatures we might have to play this one. It's just sometimes just does nothing. I don't know that we can afford to do nothing is the only thing. But we're assuming they're going to have some kind of removal. Maybe we just need it. I haven't played much of this card. I think we're going to try it and cut this thing. And call that a day. So, alright guys, this is our draft process. We're going to cut this video here, and I may even cut some of the nonsense out, and we'll see you guys back for some games here in a little while. The games might be on a separate video. We'll see how we decide to cut this up. But yeah, for now, we will see you in the next video.